You find yourself at the edge of a ruined city, where the towers crumble like old promises and the streets pulse with a strange, magnetic ache. This is not a place on any map. It is the first terrain of the soul's hunger. You do not walk here. You are pulled. By thirst. By craving. By something deeper than logic, older than memory. A voice calls out from the ruins, whispering your name in a tone you've never heard aloud but have always known inside. You follow it. And in following, you begin the journey into the architecture of addiction. Not as failure, not as disease, but as an archetype seeking wholeness through brokenness. Jung taught that neurosis is the suffering of a soul that has not discovered its meaning. And now, the city groans with meaning, if only you will listen. A serpent stirs beneath the stones. You feel it before you see it, a presence coiled not in malice but in memory. It is the same serpent from other dreams, but this time it is thinner, restless, twitching with hunger. It does not speak. It aches. You realize it has not eaten in years. Or perhaps it has eaten everything and still starves. Addiction, Jung once said, is the modern soul's attempt at religious experience gone blind. The snake hungers not for substance, but for God, for transcendence, for a return to the mythic. But instead it finds glass bottles, glowing screens, powdered illusions. You look into its eyes and realize, this is not your enemy. This is your wound, made sentient. The city whispers again, and you see them, the hollow-eyed figures moving through alleyways of oblivion. They are not monsters. They are children wearing adult skin, trembling beneath the weight of unmet need. Each clutches a totem, a cigarette, a needle, a phone, a bottle, a memory. You try to speak, but your throat is dry. You remember now. You have been here before. Perhaps not with the same poison, but the hunger was the same. Jung called this the cry of the unlived life, the ache to feel something real in a world gone numb. The figures look at you, not with shame, with recognition, and suddenly the serpent curls around your ankle, not to restrain, but to remind. You too are one of us. You enter a temple at the heart of the ruined city. Inside, nothing gleams. Everything smells of rust, old blood, and incense burned too long. Upon the altar lies a broken mirror, and beside it, offerings. Used syringes, torn love letters, childhood toys stained with regret. This is not blasphemy. This is honesty. Jung taught that the sacred and the profane are closer than we dare believe. Here, addiction is not hidden. It is worshipped, but blindly, unconsciously, as a false god promising reunion through consumption. You realize, the addict is not immoral. The addict is a mystic whose ritual has gone astray. They seek union with the divine, but through means that destroy the vessel. You kneel before the altar, and the mirror pulses once. You see your face in the glass, but younger, terrified, hungry. The serpent slithers onto the altar and curls around the mirror. It speaks at last, not in words, but in wounds. Each scale whispers a memory, the unmet gaze of a parent, the silence after a scream, the smile that never reached the eyes. Addiction does not begin with the drug. It begins with the absence of attunement, of being seen, of being held. Jung would say these unmet needs fester in the unconscious, growing teeth and seeking satisfaction wherever they can. You begin to understand. The addiction is not the core problem. It is the signal flare, the torch held by the shadow, guiding you toward the Rayol wound. But few want to look there. It is easier to fight the snake than to listen to its hunger. You are led down into the crypt beneath the temple, where the air thickens and the light dims. Each step is a descent into memory, and each wall is carved with scenes from your own life. Not the parts you post online, but the quiet collapses, the private deals with despair. The serpent coils tighter around your arm, not to restrain, but to show you. This is where it began. In childhood. In moments too small to be named, but too large to forget. The moment you learned it was safer to please than to feel. The moment you realized your emotions were too loud for the room. Jung wrote that trauma is not what happens to us, but what we do with what happens. How we exile the parts of ourselves that didn't feel safe to keep. This crypt is full of those exiles. They do not hate you. They just want to come home. In the deepest chamber of the crypt, you meet the first addict. Not someone on a street corner, but a child sitting beside a broken music box. They do not look up as you approach. They are too busy trying to fix the box, turning its key over and over, hoping it will finally sing again. You kneel beside them and realize, this is you, not metaphorically. This is the part of you who first made the pact. If I numb myself, I might survive. The addiction was not rebellion. It was adaptation. Jung would call this the birth of a complex, a splinter of the psyche that keeps reliving the trauma in search of resolution. You reach out your hand. The child does not flinch. They place the broken key in your palm, and the serpent weeps. You rise from the crypt, not healed, but holding the truth that healing does not begin with willpower. It begins with witnessing. Most treatments fail not because they are wrong, but because they do not descend. They try to fix the behavior without hearing its song. Jung believed transformation could not happen without a descent into the unconscious. You cannot climb out of addiction without first meeting the parts of you that led you there. The hunger is not a flaw. It is a signal, a summons, a sacred ache. You leave the temple, but now the ruins look different. They are no longer desolate. They are sacred ground. You walk through the city again, and now each figure turns toward you. Their eyes meet yours. Something passes between you. Not pity, not superiority, but resonance. You are not separate from them. You are not above them. You are with them. The serpent now rides your shoulder like a prophet's familiar, silent but alive with knowing. Jung taught that when we integrate the shadow, we no longer project it onto others. You see these souls not as lost causes, but as mirrors of your own disowned pain. Each one carries a story that began in silence. Each one is not chasing pleasure. They are running from pain. You stop judging. You start listening. And in doing so, you begin to hear your own voice for the first time in years. The city begins to tremble, not in fear, but in awakening. The ruins shimmer. The serpent lifts its head and hisses a wordless song. A great gate opens before you, carved from bone and light. This is not the end. It is the next descent. You now understand that addiction is a symptom of sacred hunger denied its rightful food. It is not a call for punishment. It is a call for initiation. Jung wrote that every human life contains a hidden religious function, and when this function is blocked or starved, it will express itself in distorted ways. Addiction is the soul praying through poison. The gate opens wide, and you, dreamer, step through, not to escape the hunger, but to understand it. On the other side, the landscape changes. You now walk through a forest made of nerve and memory, where the trees whisper with voices you once ignored. Every leaf is a moment you numbed. Every root is a fear you buried. This is not punishment. This is retrieval. The serpent guides you along a path of red clay, each footprint burning softly behind you. Jung taught that to become whole, we must reclaim the parts of ourselves we thought were too dark, too broken, too much. The forest is full of those parts. They do not hide. They wait. They whisper. Thank you for returning. You walk deeper, and for the first time, the hunger in your chest does not hurt. It glows. You come to a stream where the water flows upward. This is not illusion. This is dream logic. You kneel beside it and see your reflection, not your face, but your need. It pulses like a wound, raw and radiant. The serpent drinks. You hesitate, and then you drink too. It tastes like grief and grace braided into one. Jung would call this encounter with the true self, what he named the self, capital S, the divine center that waits beneath all masks and cravings. The stream was not meant to quench your thirst. It was meant to introduce you to it. Addiction is not the enemy of the self. It is its perverted twin, lost in the forest. And now, at last, you meet not to battle, but to bow. You rise soaked in memory. But now the weight feels sacred. You carry your hunger not as a curse, but as a compass. The serpent speaks again, this time clearly. Your wound is your temple. Your craving is your altar. Worship wisely. These are not words of indulgence. They are words of transformation. Jung wrote that what we resist persists, and what we embrace transforms. You were never meant to fight your hunger. You were meant to feed it the right food. Not substances, not shadows, but soul, spirit, meaning. And now, your hands begin to remember how to build altars. Night falls. The stars above you pulse like ancient eyes. Each one a dream, each one a buried prayer. You are not alone. The forest hums with others, other seekers, other exiles, each walking their own descent, each guided by their own version of the serpent. Jung taught that individuation does not isolate, it connects. The more you become yourself, the more you recognize others in their truth. You are not walking away from the world. You are walking deeper into it, soul first. The addiction was never the problem. It was the torch. And now, you hold it not to burn, but to illuminate. At the edge of the forest, you come to a stone circle. In the center stands a figure cloaked in mist. You do not see its face, but you know who it is. It is the you who has yet to awaken. The possible you. The you who no longer needs to numb, because nothing in them remains unloved. The serpent slithers down your arm and encircles the stone circle, creating a sacred seal. The figure speaks. Healing begins not by rejecting the addiction, but by listening to its message. The dream fades. The hunger remains. But now, it sings in a new tongue. You are ready. The mist dissolves and the dream deepens. You stand now in a chamber of cracked obsidian, the floor pulsing beneath you like a slowed heartbeat. The serpent is gone, but only from your sight. It now moves within, coiled behind your ribs, no longer a stranger, but a guide. This place is not meant to scare you. It is meant to strip you of illusions, of false names, of every story you told yourself about what the hunger meant. Jung wrote that healing begins not with adding, but with subtracting. You look around and realize, this is the womb of the shadow. Here, the addictions were first whispered as promises. Here, the gods of avoidance first wrapped their gifts in velvet lies. You do not cry, not yet, but your bones begin to ache with memory. Around you rise statues of your protectors, not saints, not angels, but coping mechanisms carved into human form. One clutches a phone. One grips a bottle. One grins with teeth made of performance, applause, and charm. They do not move, but they watch. And you, suddenly, remember giving each one permission. As a child, as a teenager, as a broken adult trying to function in a world that rewards masks. Jung taught that when we repress a part of ourselves, we empower it in the dark. These statues are your empowered defenses. Not evil, just overgrown, just tired, just afraid of being dismantled. But you must choose. Will you worship them, or will you weep for the child who built them? You walk among the statues and they begin to whisper, not threats but bargains. We kept you safe, they say. We helped you cope. And it's true. They did. You survived because of them. But you did not live. Not fully. Not freely. Not soul deep. Jung warned that we mistake adaptation for healing, but adaptation often means building a cage and painting it gold. You touch one statue and feel its warmth. It is not dead. It is just outdated. It wants rest. It wants release. And so you bow, not in submission but in gratitude. One statue cracks. Then another. Light seeps through. You are ready to outgrow what once saved you. From the crumbling statues, blackbirds rise, crows of mourning and transition. They circle above, crying out your old names: addict, broken, weak, too much, not enough. They shout what you used to believe. But you no longer chase them. You watch,